All right, I'm going to do a couple of short videos that show different components of the second 7th grade assignment, the collecting game. So I'm going to start with how to create your collector sprite and just how to move it around. I'm going to show a couple different methods of moving it around. So we're going to create a new project. Now for the collecting game, the sprite that's collecting things moves around the screen a lot. You're steering it left and right. At least that's how I have it set up. You can choose to do it a different way. You could do like the sweet shop where you're just moving back and forth across the bottom. But in my example and the template I provided for remixing, we're moving our sprite all around. It's moving left and right. And so it's a good idea to pick a sprite for this where it's a top-down view. Like the beetle's good because it's looking top-down, but the bear is not so good because if the bear spins, if he's going down, it's like his head is going to be pointing down. It's going to look funny. So butterflies are no good for this, but you know what would be great? This cat would be great because again, we're looking from the top. These convertibles would not be so good. Here's one of my favorites. We're going to use the crab. The crab's a good one for this because the crab's got claws for grabbing things and we're collecting things, and that's something a crab might do. So I'm going to get rid of the cat. Here's the crab. Let's start off our script. I always like to make my first thing just setting the position. And by default, it'll set the position to wherever your sprite is plopped on the screen right now. So we'll do that. It's always good. In this case, we don't do much showing and hiding of our collector, but I do like to throw a show in just in case it was hidden in a previous run through of the program. And then again, there's a couple different options for how you do this, but I like to have it be kind of forever in motion. It's forever moving. Whatever direction he's pointed, he's going to be forever moving like 3 steps at a time. You can play around with that. That'll be determining how fast it moves. And then the first method I'm going to show you for how to steer him is using the keyboard. So we're going to use this thing, which you can bind to really any key on the keyboard. We're going to use the right and left arrows because I think most people will give those a try to steer something. So when the right arrow is pressed, we're going to turn 15 degrees to the right. And when the left arrow is pressed, as you might guess, we're going to turn 15 degrees to the left. And really, that should be it, I think, to steer this sprite around. So, well, let's see. Okay, so I'm doing right arrow. Oh, you know what I did? I made this one down arrow. That was a mistake. So that should be left arrow. And let's see here. Okay, so now I can steer him. But boy, that sure looks funny. He's kind of moving sideways, and there's something funny with how he's turning. So when that's happening, it's a good idea to check your costumes. So I can, so when this started off, he was kind of moving to the right. So I'm going to just drag this around. I'm going to reorient the costume. Let me try to spin this so he's perfectly facing to the right. And there. Now let's see how it works. Okay, now as I turn right, 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 left, 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 he's pointing the right way. I want to get a little bit of animation going. This crab comes with 2 costumes to show his claws snapping. So I'm going to add another forever loop. We'll just swap costumes for him. I'll just do whatever costume he's on, go to the next one. We'll put a slight delay in there so his claws aren't just going totally crazy. And now let's take a look at it. Okay, now, well, that still isn't really what I want because remember what I did? I changed the orientation of this costume. Now I got to change the orientation of this one too so that they're consistent, so that they're kind of right on top of each other with the only thing changing being the snapping of the claws. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now let's try it. Okay, claws snapping, claws snapping. That's great. There's still something a little bit weird about this. So when I turn it to the right, first off, my costumes aren't totally aligned, so there's a little jumpiness. And the other thing is he's kind of pivoting around his claw and not really around the middle part of his body. So let's go in and let's set the center point. So there's this thing to set the costume center. Every sprite's got a center, and that's the point around which it's going to rotate. So this guy, wow, his center is like way off. So if I show it there, it shows it. Now I just need to click like right in the middle of his body, and we'll go and do that on this one too. This is where it gets kind of tricky with multiple costumes. So that one's okay. Now what about this guy? Did I get them both? No, I didn't. Okay. And we'll do that. Now let's see what happens. Okay. Now we're cooking with gas. We got a sprite that moves around, claws snapping, natural motion. That's really complete as far as one way to move a sprite around. Let's show another way. We're not going to use the keyboard. We're going to use the mouse. So what if we just made the sprite go in whatever direction the mouse is pointing? Pretty easy to do in Scratch. So we're going to add a green flag and a forever loop, because we want to constantly be checking for where the mouse is pointing. And we're going to say point towards mouse pointer. So wherever the mouse pointer is, our sprite's going to turn to point that direction. Except, as I discovered, it doesn't work. There's a bug. There's a bug in Scratch. And I had to go over and do a little search. So I said like Scratch point towards mouse pointer. I like to describe the problem, and I say not working. And chances are you'll find somebody else who's had this problem. I'm going to open up. This is great. We got some discussions from the Scratch forums, and we can go and we can look through these. So I did a little bit of research. I found where, oh yeah, it's a bug. Lots of people have had this problem. And somebody had a solution. One of these threads, I found somebody had a solution, which is if you just kind of select mouse pointer a couple times, then it starts working again. Let's see if that worked. There, now I'm moving my mouse pointer around. So there, that's a quick tip on how to solve a problem doing a simple Google search to find if somebody else has had a solution to that problem. You're gonna have this, that's a skill you need to learn to get answers to some of these issues. The only way to find them is to go out on the internet and find somebody else who's had the problem. The key is being able to describe the problem in a way that that others might have used so that you can find something appropriate. Now I'm going to show you one last method before we're done here, which I don't necessarily recommend except for very particular kinds of games, and that is to just move the sprite to exactly where the mouse is. So I think it's not very fun, except for a specific kind of game that I might call the whack-a-mole game, where you have your items to be quote-unquote collected or kind of appearing and disappearing at random places, and you're really testing the reflexes of the player, how quickly they can move their collector. So now it's like, it's kind of like I just made a giant mouse pointer that's in the shape of the sprite. Or you could think about it in a collector game, and I move this around and collecting things. It's just like I'm using a big eraser from a painting program. So again, to make this a fun game with this kind of control, you got to really think about how challenging you're making the items to be collected. They need to kind of appear and disappear so quickly the player needs to move his thing around. So it's an option. It's an option if you want to make your game like that, but please try to make your game fun to play and with an appropriate control scheme for the design of your game. All right, that's enough for this video. The next video is going to add in the collectible items and show how to detect the collision, detect the collection, and change the score.